Imagine two apartments, same city, same neighborhood, nearly identical rent. The first apartment belongs to someone earning $95,000 a year. Step inside and the place looks impressive at first glance. A 75-inch television mounted neatly on the wall, a $4,000 leather sectional dominating the living room, and a kitchen packed with appliances, many of them still sitting unused in their boxes. Open the closets and they're stuffed with clothes, some still carrying their original price tags. The spare bedroom tells another story. It's no longer a bedroom. It is quietly turned into a storage space for things that haven't been touched in years. Now imagine this person opening their banking app. There's a familiar feeling in their stomach. Tension, because they're two missed paychecks away from a financial problem. Now let's visit the second apartment. This one belongs to someone earning $52,000 per year. The first thing you notice when you walk in is simplicity. A comfortable but modest couch, a reasonably sized television, a kitchen containing only the tools that are actually used. The closet holds clothes that are part of a regular routine, and the spare bedroom is exactly what it was meant to be, a bedroom. When this person checks their bank account, the reaction is completely different. No anxiety, just quiet confidence. They have 18 months of living expenses saved and invest 20% of every paycheck. Same neighborhood, but the person earning almost half the income has far greater financial security. This story isn't really about income. It's about something most people rarely notice: the relationship between possessions and financial freedom. The first person isn't reckless with money. They don't gamble. They don't have destructive habits. They don't make obviously irresponsible decisions. What happened instead is much more common. Over time, they slowly built a lifestyle that now requires almost every dollar they earn just to maintain it. The second person discovered a different approach. They realized something most people overlook. Owning less doesn't mean living a worse life. It simply means living with intention. And intentional living creates financial breathing room that many high earners never experience. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the minimalist money principles that separate people who always seem financially stable from those who constantly feel behind, regardless of how much they earn. These principles are not about deprivation. They're about understanding something most people never calculate. Every object you own has hidden financial consequences. Let's begin with a concept that can completely change how you think about spending. Everything you buy costs money twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the price on the receipt. But there's another cost that most people overlook, and in many cases it ends up being even larger. This second cost includes storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. Take something simple like a treadmill. That treadmill takes up space in your home, and space is expensive. In many cities, housing costs roughly $30 to $50 per square foot each year. A treadmill requires about 20 square feet once you account for safe clearance around it. That means you're effectively paying $600 to $1,000 per year just to store a piece of exercise equipment that often ends up holding laundry. But storage is only one part of the hidden cost. There's also maintenance. Consider a boat sitting in someone's driveway. It requires cleaning, winterization, insurance, registration, and occasional repairs. A common industry estimate suggests yearly upkeep costs about 10% of the boat's value. So a $30,000 boat quietly costs around $3,000 every year, even if it spends most of its time parked. And there's another cost most people underestimate: mental attention. Every object you own occupies a small portion of your focus. It needs to be cleaned, organized, maintained, stored, and eventually replaced or discarded. Research has shown that visual clutter increases cortisol levels and reduces concentration. In other words, too much stuff can literally make your brain work harder. And finally, there's the cost people almost never consider: opportunity cost. Every dollar tied up in possessions is a dollar that isn't growing somewhere else. That $15,000 home gym setup could have been invested in index funds. Over 15 years, that investment might grow to $50,000 or more. So you didn't just buy exercise equipment, you traded part of your future financial freedom for it. When you add up all these hidden expenses, something interesting happens. Many possessions end up costing more to keep than they did to buy. The purchase price is just the starting point. The real cost continues for as long as the item stays in your life. Minimalists understand this instinctively. They're not avoiding possessions because they dislike nice things. They avoid unnecessary possessions because they've considered the true cost and realized most items simply aren't worth it. This leads to the first rule minimalists tend to follow. Rule 1. Think in terms of cost per use. Before buying something, estimate how often you'll realistically use it. This gives you cost per use, which is a far more honest way to judge value. A $200 jacket worn twice costs $100 each time you wear it. A $400 jacket worn 200 times costs $2 per wear. In reality, the more expensive jacket becomes the better financial decision. This calculation instantly eliminates many impulse purchases. That $300 kitchen gadget you'll use twice a year? That's $150 per use in the first year. Meanwhile, a $30 tool used every week costs less than 60 cents per use. Cost per use also highlights purchases that truly improve daily life. $2,000 mattress used every night for 10 years costs about 55 cents per night. $1,500 espresso machine used daily for 5 years costs under $1 per use. The math quietly cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure. Be honest. Would you really go out and buy another fondue set? Would you replace that bread maker sitting unused in the cabinet? Would you repurchase those clothes you haven't worn in over a year? For many items, the honest answer is simple. No. Those items remain in your life mostly because of inertia. They were impulse purchases. Gifts you felt obligated to keep, or leftovers from hobbies you've already moved past. These possessions quietly carry negative value. They take up space. They require maintenance. They drain mental attention. Yet they provide almost nothing in return. Minimalists remove these items deliberately. They sell what still has value, donate what someone else might use, and discard what serves no purpose. At first, this process can feel uncomfortable. But once it's done, most people experience something unexpected. Relief. Rooms feel larger. Cleaning becomes easier. Daily decisions become simpler. And suddenly, everything in your home has a clear role. Which brings us to another common financial trap. Upgrading things simply because something newer exists. That's Rule 3. There's a pattern I see constantly among people with solid incomes who still struggle financially. They replace items that still work perfectly. The television works fine, but the new model has better contrast. The phone works well, but the newest version has a slightly better camera. The car runs reliably, but the latest model looks more modern. These upgrades feel like progress. But financially, they're often wealth destruction disguised as improvement. Minimalists follow a much stricter rule. If something still works, it doesn't need to be replaced. A phone that sends messages, runs apps, and makes calls is still doing its job. A car that reliably gets you where you need to go is still functioning. Yet many people replace these items long before they actually fail. Over time, this habit becomes incredibly expensive. The average American replaces their phone every 2 to 3 years, often while the old one still works perfectly. Over 30 years, this single habit can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Across multiple categories, the lifetime cost can easily exceed $200,000. Minimalists avoid this trap by defining functional very clearly. An item remains functional until it can no longer perform the job it was meant to do. Boredom is not failure. The desire for something new is not failure. The existence of a newer version is not failure. Only genuine breakdown or inability to perform its task qualifies. Everything else is simply marketing persuading you to solve problems that don't exist, which leads to the next rule. Create friction for spending and ease for saving. Because human behavior almost always follows the path of least resistance. If spending is effortless while saving requires effort, most people will spend. But if saving happens automatically and spending requires friction, the opposite happens. You save. Minimalists understand this deeply, so they design their environment to make the right choice, the easiest one. Creating friction around spending can look like small structural changes. Removing stored credit card details from online stores. Setting a 24-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase. Deleting shopping apps from your phone. Unsubscribing from marketing emails. Or simply avoiding stores unless you already know exactly what you intend to buy. At the same time, they make saving effortless. Automatic transfers into investment accounts on payday. Keeping only small balances in easily accessible checking accounts. letting investment contributions happen before the money ever feels available, and treating savings like a required monthly expense. These structural adjustments matter far more than most people realize. Because willpower is unreliable. Willpower fades throughout the day. Your environment does not. Someone relying on discipline will eventually slip, but someone who removed the temptation cannot make the impulse purchase. Minimalists don't depend on their future self to behave perfectly. Instead, they build systems that make the good decision automatic. One simple example is the 24-hour rule. Waiting just one day eliminates many impulsive purchases. Most purchasing urges are temporary. If they're not acted on immediately, they often disappear. Rule 5. Count what you own. Counting forces awareness, and awareness prevents accumulation. Choose a category in your home and count how many items you have. Then write the number down. For people who have never examined their consumption habits, the results can be surprising. Rule 6. Borrow or rent before committing to ownership. Many items people buy follow a predictable pattern. At first, they're used frequently, then gradually less. Eventually, they become something that sits quietly in the background. Minimalists test this pattern before purchasing. Instead of buying immediately, they rent or borrow first. This reveals whether the interest is real or temporary. Many hobbies fade after the initial excitement. The buy-first mentality quietly costs people enormous amounts of money. Minimalists avoid turning their homes into museums of past enthusiasm. Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier. Many purchases don't exist in isolation. A boat requires a trailer, storage, maintenance supplies, and more. Large purchases tend to multiply into entire networks of costs. Minimalists calculate the full ecosystem cost first. Rule 8. Decide what enough means before income grows. Without defining enough, the target keeps moving. Income rises, lifestyle expands. Minimalists stop this cycle early. They build their lifestyle around that definition. Rule 9. Measure wealth by freedom, not possessions. Minimalists measure wealth differently. They measure it by optionality, the ability to choose. Those options represent real wealth, and they only exist when spending stays far below income. Minimalists understand this clearly. Real optionality depends on liquid resources. Every purchase is a trade between ownership and future freedom, which finally brings us back to the two apartments. The apartment belonging to someone earning $52,000 with 18 months of savings belongs to someone applying these principles. They didn't get there through extraordinary income. They got there through clarity. Meanwhile, the $95,000 apartment tells a different story. 2 paychecks from crisis. Both lifestyles are available to almost anyone. The difference isn't income. It's the role possessions play in your life. Do you want to own your possessions? Or let your possessions own you? Financially, the numbers strongly favor the first choice, and so does the peace of mind that comes with it.